Hello and welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. It is Friday and that means, as always, I'm joined by Tony Haggerty. How you doing, Tony?
I'm very well, Laura. Yourself?
Not too bad. Our top screen on the other side has been unfortunately replaced. Jim cannot join us this week because in his other life he's a playwright and he's in the middle of a 2 or 3 night run, I think it is, of his new play Bend It Like Bertie, which I'm assured was a great success last night, but obviously he's got things to do in between to keep those lovies happy in the theatre.
I'll let you know, Laura, I'm going tonight with my father, so I'll give you the full rundown next time I see you.
Oh, that sounds absolutely great. Unfortunately, couldn't make it myself this weekend, but to anybody who's going, then obviously have a great time when you are there. Say hello to your fellow ACSOM listeners, who I'm sure will be there as well. Thanks everybody for joining us. We've got a lot to discuss. Obviously, Tony, since the last time I was on the show, I know you're on a Monday, but since the last time I was on the show, there's been a lot of transfer activity. We've got the Rangers game to look back at, which I was obviously in the match coverage for, but we haven't had a chance to talk about it ourselves. And a wee look ahead to what's going to be happening sort of over the next couple of weeks during the international break, because we sure as heck aren't going to be talking about Scotland after that result the other night. But before we do all that, and before we talk about the modern day, a little bit of a look back. Common phrase with Celtic Football Club, know your history, and it's something that I always try to do. One thing that you surely couldn't fail to know about if you're a Celtic supporter is the tragic death of Johnny Thomson, which is being remembered 90 years on this weekend. Sunday the 5th of September will be 90 years since he was tragically killed during the Old Firm match at Ibrox. Tony, it's, I think, a great reflection on Celtic support that we are talking about a player 90 years on, and that there are events, there's a pilgrimage happening to his gravestone in Cardenden this weekend. It's just everything Celtic's about, isn't it, to remember those who played for us?
Oh yeah, and I think John Thomson is particularly poignant. You know, there's that wonderful carving on his gravestone, "They never die who live in the hearts they leave behind." It's just wonderful words. It sums up the death of any Celtic player, but in particularly John Thomson, who, as you say, tragically gave his life in the act of duty at a Rangers game. And I've always felt that I love the light show in the 67th minute for the Lisbon Lions, but I've always felt in the 31st minute that they should sing a chorus and a verse of the John Thomson song. I know it's particularly sad and the lyrics are quite poignant and quite haunting, but I just think it'd be a wonderful tribute to remember John Thomson, and keep that link to the heroes of the past, because we sing enough about the heroes from 67 onwards. But I think John Thomson in particular, in the 31st minute, if the Celtic fans could kind of take up the baton and the mantle and sing a chorus of the John Thomson song, because I love the lyrics of the John Thomson song. I think it's great, between the poster stands a ghost, John Thomson was his name. I just think that would be absolutely wonderful if the Green Brigade or the Celtic fans could kind of remember him in the 31st minute. I just think it'd be a brilliant thing to do. And as I say, you said at the top of the programme, if you know your history, and it's amazing to think that it's 90 years, and to all those that are doing the pilgrimage, I say well done. And it's a wonderful thing to do. I think our very own Lawrence Conley has embarked on the pilgrimage before. Don't know if he's doing it this time, but he said it's a cracking thing to do, and I'll get round to doing it at some point myself. But 90 years, wow, and very popular goalkeeper at the time. I think he was the Prince, I think was his.
Prince of Goalkeepers was his nickname, yeah.
So you don't get that moniker if you've carved an indelible mark in the sport and in Celtic's history. So I have a reputation for making people greet. So if people are crying right now, then it's not my modus operandi. But I think if we could adopt the John Thomson song in the 31st minute, it would make me happy, man.
Yeah, I think it would. It's you do say it's a song full of regret and nostalgia and melancholy and all those nice and not so nice things in between, but it is one of my favourite Celtic songs. I went to I went to the play, the Johnny Thompson play that was on a few years ago in Glasgow with my mum, and as you can imagine, the pair of us were finding it hard to console ourselves or keep ourselves together throughout the whole thing. My mum's dad, my granddad, John, he was actually of an age where, you know, Johnny Thompson was his generation, so he went to the funeral and did all that stuff, you know, all those pictures you see of people making the trek from Glasgow to Cardenden. He was amongst those numbers. So it's a connection for me as well as a Celtic supporter that goes back, you know, through my family as well as the Celtic support. So it's always something I feel particularly connected to. And I think as well, people forget as well that he wasn't just a fantastic player. He was obviously raised Protestant in a time when there was obviously still the great divide between Catholic and Protestant and what it meant to be a Celtic player, what it meant to be a Rangers player. And he happily, you know, crossed that divide, made people come together from both sides, and that's something that you can only hope is continued throughout the years. But for it to have happened, especially at that time, was probably, in fact, it definitely was a much bigger deal than it is now. And he was a fantastic goalkeeper from all records, you know, played for Scotland 4 times as well. Did a lot in his career for somebody who was only 22 years old.
Yeah, I think it's just important to remember heroes, and John Thompson, who tragically died, as you say, so young, he's still one of those Celtic heroes that, you know, any Celtic supporter, if they know their history, knows about John Thompson, regardless of what era they existed in or supported Celtic in. They know about John Thompson, which is why I just sort of think it's important to keep that memory alive by singing the song. As you say, the deeds that he did, and, you know, he was, to all intents and purposes, a wonderful, wonderfully talented goalkeeper, and by all accounts, a decent person too. So yeah, it's you know, incredibly poignant that it's 90 years, but it'd be even more poignant if they could remember him at every home game now moving forward. I would love that to happen, and I think I wouldn't be alone in thinking that too.
Yeah, well, it would be certainly something to start, given that this is 90 years, for it to be the decade leading up to 100 years, for that to be something that Celtic support start to do. Although I have to say, if we start marking out too many more points of the match, we'll have our agenda handed to us when we get into the stadium. I remember that when we were at the Jablonec game and the lights started going up for the 67th minute. I'm going, where's my phone? Where's my phone? But no, it would be a fantastic thing to do. Just unfortunate that we're not playing this weekend, obviously, to mark it more poignantly and more specifically on this weekend. But thanks everybody for watching. For anybody watching on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, wherever you're watching, one thing I would recommend for you to do is Tifo Football did a fantastic video on Johnny Thompson a couple of years ago. It's only about 6 or 7 minutes, so it shouldn't take up much of your time, but it goes into his history about being born and raised in Wellesley in Fife, and how he started out as a 14-year-old working in the mines, and that's where he built the strength to be a goalkeeper, and goes into a bit more depth about his background and that kind of thing. And it's really, really a fantastic wee video that tells you a lot more and taught me a lot about Johnny Thompson that I didn't know about, even years after I found out who he was. But we'll move on from that sad memory onto to current times. And well, I was going to say better times, but obviously last weekend wasn't so great with us losing to Rangers as we did. I have to say, Tony, like we get a lot of blowback after the match coverage for obvious reasons, because I think emotions are high after an Old Firm match, and people are, you know, wanting to defend Celtic or wanting to criticise Celtic, and I always try and find the middle ground somewhere and be fair about it. But one of the themes of the conversation was, for those of us, myself included, who have been proponents of Ange's football and everything that he's done, and major fans of what he's done since he came into the club, there does come a point where at a certain point you have to say, no, those decisions were wrong, that he didn't make the right call there. My big one was playing Edouard instead of Furuhashi through the middle. I think it's only fair when we come on a platform this, is it not, to say when we think something's been done wrong, or to praise when it's been done right.
course, and the manager was the first to admit and hold his hand up at the end of the game, or when he was interviewed after the game, and say that it was on him, that he should have played Furuhashi through the middle. So I think if the manager's perfectly honest and upfront and willing to admit that, then the likes of yourself and myself saying that, it's not being critical. You're just sort of offering a viewpoint which the manager now shares. So we're now agreeing with the manager that he should have put Furuhashi through the middle, because Furuhashi through the middle has been at his most devastating. Well, when he and scored most of his goals by playing through the middle. So, but he, and I made the point on Monday that I think he sort of based the team going to Ibrox on the last half hour against AZ Alkmaar, when there was a steady shape to Celtic, and they saw it out pretty comfortably when Edouard came on in Alkmaar, so maybe he was thinking, right, I'll see how this goes, and if we can ride this out and get through to the Europa League group stages, that's what I'll do when we go to Ibrox. In hindsight, and revisionism is a great thing, and everybody's you're rewriting history and stuff like that. But you ask most Celtic supporters, the way they closed that game out against Alkmaar, they actually played quite well. And a couple of slack Abada passes would have played Edouard in 1-on-1 on goal. So going into Ibrox and playing that shape, you weren't too perturbed, but your thoughts at the back of your mind were Furuhashi should probably be through the middle. But they had a whole 45 minutes to realise it wasn't working. So I would have put Furuhashi through the middle at half-time, because when he eventually made the switch and Rogic came on 67 minutes, he went through on goal within 30 seconds or a minute, and McCrory came out and blocked him. Then he went through on goal again, McCrory saved with his foot, and then went through and goal again, elected to pass when he probably should have shot that time, and the one that he shot off McCrory's foot should have squared to Christie. So they would have got joy with him through the middle earlier, and I think that's what Andrew's probably lamenting at the end when he was asked about it. So, yeah, coulda, woulda, shoulda. Bottom line is, we lost the game, but I guess if the manager's going to turn around and say, it's on me, I wrote in the Celtic that it was maybe his way of apologising without actually saying sorry about playing Furuhashi in that position.
Yeah, and I think that was another major takeaway that I had from it. One thing that has pleased me about Ange so far has been that he has been willing to make changes early on in the matches when he hasn't seen it's working. This, for some reason, was a game where he chose not to do that and maybe waited a little bit too long to make the changes. I think, for example, I think the first substitution wasn't made till about 67 minutes. Abada was taken off in something like the 86th minute, having done little to nothing the whole game. And that, you could blame Abada for that, but I think with any wide player, if for whatever reason the team just aren't looking for you out there, the game can quite easily pass you by. So there's obviously to blame for some of it, but not all of it. But not making that change earlier did surprise me as far as Ange's concerned, because he's usually a bit more decisive than that.
Well, Abada and Kyogo were negated because they never once dropped the ball over the top like Anthony Ralston did in Alkmaar in the first couple of minutes, and they got the goal from it. I never once seen Abada or Kyogo giving a ball into a corner to chase down and whip it across for Eddie. For that matter, it happened once. Kyogo squared it to Eddie and he missed the absolute sitter, but that was just once, So when Celtic were playing it around, I always thought, why did they not try and just at least drop it over the top and let these guys have got lightning speed, electric speed, and see what could have happened? But it happened just the once, and Celtic fashioned the best chance of the match, best chance of the first half, and French Eddie, I don't know what happened, just took his eye off the ball, basically. It's inexplicable how he's missed it, but he missed it, so we can't replay the instant. But I found that strange, and then I found it stranger that he never changed it at half-time because of that. We only had that one chance, And then, as you say, in the 67th minute when the substitutions were made, Celtic then started to get a bit of joy because Furuhashi was running directly at Rangers and they got a couple of chances. But I also think as well that you looked at the bench at Ibrox and it highlighted your lack of strength and depth. Because Tom Rogic was the only player capable of influencing that game in an attacking sense. The rest were, Adam Montgomery done pretty well in the games that he's played. Sorrell is a holding midfielder and he clearly doesn't have any faith in Ajeti. That's a centre forward. You're chasing a goal in a Rangers game and he didn't bring him on. Tells you everything you need to know, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is a strange thing, and it actually brings me on to the kind of next talking point. There's been a lot of change, a revolving door as far as the strikers are concerned this summer window. We've lost or got rid of, whatever the phrase is you want to use, Edouard, Griffiths. They're both gone. We've brought in Giakoumakis. Ayeti's still here. Furuhashi, if we're going to play him through the middle, is another option. We are thin on the ground as far as striking options concerned, but assuming Giakoumakis sort of provides the form that he did last season in Eredivisie, you have to say we've got goals on our hands if things look like they're going to go the way they should. Yeah,
they've got goals. I mean, the Giakoumakis showreel from last season is very impressive. Lots of people are saying up until last season he wasn't that great. Lots of people are also saying but he didn't score against Feyenoord and Ajax. It was all the lower league teams, but someone was also making the point, but he's going to be playing for the Feyenoord and Ajax in Scotland, so he can continue to score against the lower league opposition because he's playing for one of the top teams, but if you score 26 goals in the Eredivisie for a team that gets relegated, you have ability. And Alex Kyogo's speed and quickness of thought and his ability to finish, then there's goals in that team, so that's good. But they're still light in many positions, and I've written a piece for the Celtic where it's going to go in either tomorrow. I think it's tomorrow. What if Callum McGregor gets injured? What would Celtic do? How pivotal is he? And I was surprised that they didn't bring in another midfielder.
Because I think as much as Callum McGregor's been reliable and injury free, if he does get injured, I don't think you can say the same about James McCarthy. He's not going to be able to come in and play 40 games a season.
No, so I was surprised that Celtic never brought in a midfielder, and I was even more surprised that they never thought of going for Ali McCann from St Johnstone, who ended up being for 1.2 million. Now that staggered me, because I thought there was interest from Celtic in Ali McCann, and then you kind of read that they were being quoted £3 million. So I don't know what's happened here. If Celtic have balked at that or walked away because St Johnstone were maybe, and they've now sold them to Preston for 1.2 million. Something's happened there, because there wasn't really an interest from Celtic. And I thought, if anything, he could be the guy should Callum McGregor get injured or be rested, because he's played a colossal amount of football. Ali McCann could have been that, that man to fulfil that role. Again, it's gone, but I was just surprised that McCann went for so little, and I was surprised that Celtic didn't even think of going back in when it was announced that Preston were lodging a bid of just over £1 million for 1.2, I think he went for. I don't know what's went on there, so that's a strange one.
It is a strange one, and I think, like you say, the worry about McGregor is that he's another year older at this point. The amount of games he's going to have to play because there is no other option is going to put him at risk of injury in itself. It's not just going to be bad luck, it's going to be tired legs or lack of concentration going into a tackle or something like that, or just, joints giving way when he's played as much football as he has over the past 4 or 5 years.
Is there a man that's averaging about 4,500 minutes of football in those past 5 years? Upwards of 5,000 in one of the seasons. So that's a colossal amount of football for club and country. It takes its toll on the body. So I was just surprised. That's all. I thought Celtic would maybe target a defender, a midfielder, a striker, and obviously a fullback. So a central defender, a fullback, midfielder, and a striker. They got 3 out of those 4.
Yeah,
which is fair enough. But they're still light. The Ibrox bench shows you they're very light. Certain areas.
I think it shows you the amount of work as well that, I'm one of these people who I think, although there is legitimacy to people saying, oh, it's still not enough and it's this and that, it shows you the amount of work they've had to do, that we've had 12, 13 players come in the door and we're still not there yet. It's crazy.
And also as well, you look at the quality that's gone. Now, you can argue the toss, but Christie and Edouard were quality footballers for Celtic. Maybe not in the last 12 months, but they attracted a lot of grief, and a lot of ire from the Celtic fans. But they were outstanding players for Celtic, and anybody that says any different, then I'd question that. I think like everything else last season, it just fell apart, and the people that you look to raise you out of that malaise, it didn't happen. Christie and Edouard being 2 of those kind of guys, but you cannot fault what they've given to the club and the good times and the goals that they contributed. So they go with your blessing, and you say thanks very much. Christie, I was surprised with going to Bournemouth, choice of club, but the positives that people are accentuating is that Ange now has a squad of players that want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, then that's good. In this couple of weeks, he'll get a real chance to work with them all, because it's been a hectic start to Celtic season. So they've probably been training and playing, whereas now he's got a bit of time to actually get some methods and training across and actually get down to fundamentals on the training pitch, which he quite likes to do. He's very hands-on with that. So that's a good thing. And if you've got a squad of players that are now going to buy into his philosophy, his style, his management, then that's a good thing. But and that's it's not a criticism of Celtic. It's just more the fact that I would like to have seen them do more business. They have let a lot of quality players go. We've replaced some of them. We've still to see the quality of Cameron Carter-Vickers and Giakoumakis, but I'm quite excited about Jota. He's one that I think will excite me greatly. And I know people can put up showreels and make everybody look good. They did it with Raphael and Celtic took a £6 million punt on him and it didn't work. That's fine, but I look at Giakoumakis and I look at Jota, showreel, and I think they've got something about them, And Cameron Carter-Vickers, I think if you, I know he only made one appearance for Tottenham, but he had a cracking loan spell at Bournemouth last season, and all the fans said they would have loved to have him back. So I go with that. That's a decent standard of football.
Yeah, and I think as well, the further we get into Ange's tenure as manager, I still have reservations about whether Abada and Starfelt, where Ange signings, Abada has hit the ground running, Starfelt not so much, but I'm sure he'll come round. But we're now at a stage where the players that are coming in, you can't deny they are Ange signings, and they are hopefully therefore going to be able to put that play across. And at the very least, like you say, at least we've got players who are glad that they're at Celtic, and we are glad that we have all these listeners and viewers watching us today on Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, wherever you can find us. I think we're streaming from 8 different locations, Tony. So God knows how many pounds that's adding to us. I'm not sure.
On the subject of Starfelt, though, I felt he had his best game in a Celtic jersey at Ibrox.
Yeah, he was absolutely fantastic, I thought. A lot of people said he came onto a game against Alkmaar. I wasn't so sure, but I certainly thought he had a better game against Rangers than I've seen him have previously.
But my only gripe is that between him and Welsh, you know what I'm like with corners coming over? Just jump, block the run, between you sort it out. See if there's big guys coming up from the back to stick the ball in your net, going to mark them, going to be a presence. That and that's fine margins. Celtic didn't actually play particularly great at Ibrox, but neither did Rangers. Joe Hart wasn't busy. Did the Kent shot off the outside of the post and nothing else, and Hellander's goal. Right, that was it. So a draw would probably have been a fair result, but and you hate to say it, but champions find a way to win. Celtic used to be able to do that, grind it out. When you're not playing well, then it can come down to a set play. So now, when these things are happening, Celtic need to be able to defend those set plays. Lost a similar goal to Hearts, lost the opening game of the season, gone to Ibrox and lost to a set play. So, 4 games in, 2 defeats, not great, but positive strides have been taken. Getting to the Europa League group stages against a decent Eredivisie team, we'll take that. Secures European football, and we'll enjoy that. But there are things that need addressed, and that's one of them moving forward. Defensive frailties. Just deal with things, and I hope these are the things that Ange will be. I'm sure he'll be drilling it into them in the time he has to work with them now. Just iron those things out, because you can see what's happening there. They are I was keep saying the words work in progress, but there comes a point where you have to be men at work. Where you have to get the tool, the boiler suits on, as they say, and get the tools out of the bag and start performing and do it.
Well, one player that didn't look like a work in progress and looks like he might slot in quite well, even if he is having to play slightly out of position, although I'm sure he's played there before, is Juranovic. I thought he, as much as he could have looked positive given the fact that we lost the match, I thought he looked like a player that I'm excited to see more of. He looks. I made the point in the post-match coverage, he looks as if he's got the ability to defend and attack. I think too often we have fullbacks or wing-backs who can do one or the other, but not both. And I think he looks like he might be a step. He's certainly going to be a step up in quality if and when Taylor comes back. Ralston's done great, but I don't think we can rely on him for the season. What were your impressions of Juranovic and what his place in the team could be going forward?
I don't think you can underestimate the contribution of Juranovic. To go to Ibrox and turn in that performance against a hostile crowd in a position that you're unaccustomed to. I thought alongside Starfelt and Ralston, that they were our 3 best players at Ibrox. Which said a lot about the kind of game it was. Because from middle to front, we failed to shine. Sadly, but that's just the way the game panned out. But I was really impressed with Juranovic. The only thing was when he was breaking forward, you always seen him checking onto his right foot, and that's natural. That's just natural. But I thought he looked really solid, looked reliable, and he looked dependable. And from the get-go, he just seemed to get it. He didn't look like a fish out of water. Didn't look to try and make excuses for the fact he was playing a role that was alien to him. Normal. Players have a natural position for a reason. Just got on with it. And I admired that about him. And as you say, got forward, defended when he had to. And I like you, I want to see more of him, but I'd like to see more of him in his natural position. But you run the risk of destroying Anthony Ralston's confidence if you just bombed him out at this moment in time. Because he's having a real purple patch in his Celtic career, and you cannot find fault in Ralston at this minute in time. But like you, I think will he sustain that between now and the end of the season? I'm not so sure, and I think Juranovic at some point will gain his natural position. So it's a nice headache to have. You've got 2 guys who are vying for that. That's always a good thing for a manager.
Well, I was going to say, given our involvement in the Europa League having been secured now from now until Christmas, we're going to have patches where the games are coming thick and fast, especially, towards the end of the year, towards Christmas. I think Tony Ralston, although I understand the point about, perhaps shattering his confidence, I think it's part of being a footballer these days that, you're part of a big squad and sometimes you will play, sometimes you won't. And hopefully, you'll see Juranovic coming in as a good thing rather than a negative, and something that he can he can, make Juranovic take the shirt off him rather than just give it up meekly, Yeah.
I mean, that, as you say, that's the challenges that footballers face on a daily basis. I just think that you wouldn't drop Ralston at this moment in time, would you?
No.
I just don't think you can afford to, because he is playing out his skin, and he's earned the right to start at right back for the time being. So that's fine, but Juranovic is coming in to take that shot.
Yeah.
Be aware of a presence over your shoulder. I don't think Juranovic, Croatian international, is coming in to sit on the bench. So, and as I say, that's a good thing. I think healthy competition for places is good. Liam Scales has also come in, and people are telling us that he's a very good footballer. So can he make that step up from Irish football to playing Scottish football? And he's performed well in the Europa League himself with Shamrock Rovers. So he's played at a decent level. He's got experience at a decent level. So he might get his chance sooner than he thinks, and we'll be able to see what he's made of as well.
Well, I think that's an interesting point that you raised. It's. I was mentioning this to somebody I was talking to about Celtic a few days ago, where I was saying, it doesn't take an awful lot to change the way a situation looks. We were talking at the European qualifiers when we were playing Midtjylland that, oh my goodness, it's Ralston and Beaton at the back, and how that was terrible. And now we look at a situation where you've got Starfelt, you've got Welsh, Julian hopefully coming back, Carter Vickers and Scales, who can all play at centre back. So, there's options there, which I think is great, and hopefully they can prove to be good, strong options, because I think, although I love Stephen Welsh and I think he's made a fantastic start, he is going to need support going forward. I don't think we can rely on him constantly. He's probably in the same boat as Ralston as far as that's concerned. He's great, but he will need, opportunities for other people to support him in that sense. Looking at Carter Vickers specifically, as you mentioned before, he had a great spell with Bournemouth last season, but I read an interesting thing, or reading the transcript of one of his interviews when he came in, and he mentioned that Joe Hart had a big part in convincing him to come to Celtic, and I just thought to myself, that's fantastic to read, that not only, it goes back to your point about Celtic players wanting to be here. We've not only got Celtic players wanting to be here, we've got Celtic players telling other players how good it is to be here. And the whole mindset just seems to have flipped on stuff like that.
I think of the deals that Celtic did on transfer deadline day, the Cameron Carter Vickers one was the one that had most Celtic fans punching the air, because they knew they needed a centre back. And when Spurs said they wanted Celtic to buy him, and it kind of died a death, Celtic were, you were left pretty despondent and disappointed. And then when it got resurrected very late on, you were like, yes, get this over the line. Don't make this one of those the next day we couldn't get it over the line jobs.
Yeah.
And as you say, it's brilliant to read that. Of course, Cameron Carter Vickers is going to say to Joe Hart, what's it like? And and players tell the truth, don't they?
Yeah.
Joe Hart's come in and got it right away. I know you had reservations about him, and he's, beforehand, and you voiced that on the pod and fine, but you said that he's quickly laid those to rest by the
100%,
the way he's come in, and he has been quite humble, but he's also, he's bought into the Celtic thing,
Yeah.
He's bought into it straight away, straight off the bat, and he's loving it. And then that's a great influence. That's a thing that guys with experience can bring. He's told this guy, get yourself up here. This is wonderful. You'll love this. You'll not experience anything like this. And the guys in Cameron Carter Vickers went, right, I'm here, I'm on it. And then he's saying that when Spurs came back to him and said, would you like to go up there? He was like, without a doubt. Your first port of call was always going to be Joe Hart. If Joe Hart says, I would maybe hang off and see what you can get down south, then the guy would be like, nah. But he's obviously gave him such a positive and glowing review. Couldn't get up here quick enough.
Yeah.
And he's now saying, I spoke to Joe Hart, can't wait to experience it for myself. All that kind of ties into the buy-in with Ange and players that want to be here. And I think moving forward, they're all, as you say, they're all good and positive signs. We just need more players like that. We need in the door, you know what I mean, if you get what I mean. But for now, we have the nucleus of listen, from where Celtic have came from in the 4 weeks or 5 weeks since we played Midtjylland, it's night and day. The progress is off the charts, right? In terms of the way we're playing in the games that we've won, you know, and the way we've negotiated them. You know, disappointment to Hearts, disappointment to Rangers, of course, but it's been a hectic schedule, and he's not had any semblance of a settled team, really, has he?
No.
You know, so now you're hoping that, well, you've got to January now. This is what you've got to work with in January. And I don't think for a minute that the Japanese season finishes round about then. He's got his eye on he's going to bring in another 3 or 4
100%
from the J League, right? Or from leagues that he knows players. So he's just biding his time because you can't bring them in now because it's too difficult maybe to get the deals done. And he alluded to that. But I don't think for a minute that he's not got a list that long of guys that he's going to say in January, bring him, and him in positions that we all know need strengthened. You know, full back, midfielder, maybe up front. You know, that kind of thing. So I don't think for a minute that I'm sure he's aware of that, and as much as the fans are. So, you know, has he been back? People saying he's not been backed. Well, he kind of has been backed, but maybe not to the extent that the Celtic supporters wanted with the players that have left. But you know, small steps. We're taking small steps.
I think like you say though, like there's no doubt if you look at just these 3 on this list, Christie, Ajer, Edouard, we have lost a lot of quality. There's no doubt about that. But we've just been talking about players who want to be at the club. Those 3 players, as well as they've served us, did not want to be at the club anymore. And so, you know, I am, to go further on that point that we've been making, you know, I'm less concerned about them having left than I might otherwise have been. You know, if a club had come in, for example, within a bid for one of them that we just couldn't refuse at a time when they were still willing to stay at the club, then I think I would have been more gutted to lose them, kind of the way that we were with Tierney. But that hasn't been the case. Going back to Joe Hart as well, as you said, my reservations about him were massive coming in. I didn't like anything that I'd ever seen him in interviews. I saw enough of him in games as a goalkeeper, as well as just his personality wise, that I thought was going to be a problem. But I actually think, and the biggest problem was ego. But I actually think to flip that around, his ego has become a positive because he's seen an opportunity here where he sees the fans and he sees, wow, if I perform for this club, I could really be loved.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's appealed to him.
Joe Hart's had a chance to reinvent himself here, you know? And if Joe Hart can get himself up to speed and do what Fraser Forster did at Celtic, Joe Hart could get back into the England squad, no bother.
Yeah.
Jordan Pickford's all that, you know? So,
and who have they got in goals after him? You know, it was a bunch of also-rans at the Euros, none of whom that I could particularly name off the top of my head.
So, and that's what I loved about Joe Hart. Joe Hart didn't turn down his nose at this. Joe Hart thought, this is a wonderful opportunity for me to reinvent myself and go where I'm loved. And you cannot, you know, playing in front of 60,000 people, it's addictive. It's a drug. And you'll not have played in front of, you know, big crowds like that down in England a lot. Some games you will have, but not a lot. But you'll get up here. He's just experienced his first taste of a Celtic Rangers game, or, you know, a Rangers Celtic game. Okay, he's lost it, but you know, these are the games that guys want to perform in. These are the ones that you, when you retire, you say, that's on my CV. I did that, you know. And I just like the way he's come in and he's embraced it. And I think a lot of that stems from the manager. The manager has clearly told him, Joe, you know, you can come in and do something special for us. You know, and Joe Hart's went, you know what, I can. And as you say, and I like the fact that he has a wee bit of ego. You know, that time at Celtic Park against Alkmaar when they were under the caution, the concession of a goal would have proved costly. And they but they managed to see it out with a clean sheet. And he just said, I'm going long. I'm taking the heat and the pressure. And he took that exec deck and he said to Callum McGregor, look, I'm hitting it to corners. You know, that's a goalkeeper that's adapting to a situation, thinking, we're under P here. I'm going to use my experience and then tell the players, listen, I know what I'm doing here, trust me. You know, he's been around And you listen to a guy like Joe Hart, you know, can you imagine Barkas or Bain making that kind of exec deck on a football park?
No.
No, you can't. Can you imagine any of the players listening to them at that particular moment in time if that was a situation in the game? I find it hard to see how they would communicate that message across.
I'll tell you something, you know, Ange comes across as a pretty intimidating figure in some situations, and I understand why. There are few players in that dressing room that I don't think are intimidated by Ange, but Joe Hart's in that category. Do I think he'll listen to his manager? Absolutely. But like you say, if he's wanting to make the call and he's wanting to change up things how they're working and he can put his point across to Ange, I think he'll do it.
Yeah, which is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a good thing because you need as many leaders and as many voices on a football park as possible. And that's what I like about Hart. He's a leader, you know, and people can question whether they think he's the goalkeeper of many years ago. I'm delighted that we've got a guy like Joe Hart in between the sticks. Because first and foremost, I think he can save the football, which is what we wanted for a start. Yeah. And he's got wonderful experience in that. That experience just, you know, he can transmit that to other players. He can talk players through football matches, you know, and yeah, of course there's going to be an ego there with Hart because of where he's came from, what he's seen and what he's done. But I don't mind that. If you can back it up, fine. You know, as I read some comments that people were blaming him for last week's goal. I mean, wow, you know, I know there's fine margins in the actual game and it was a set piece, but I thought, you know what, well done by a set piece, a bullet header again. So, you know.
Well, I was going to say actually because I kind of was going down that road when we were watching it in the studio last week, and we did have a discussion with it during the match when we weren't on air, and I think we all came to the conclusion that so often you can see a goal repeatedly over and over, slowed right down to within an inch of its life, that you get to the point where you think, oh, why has he not saved that? You forget that it's going like that and it's a one-time thing. He doesn't know where the ball's coming from. He doesn't really know where it's going. He's got a split second to make a decision. It can look bad on a replay, but it doesn't always mean that the goalkeeper's at fault.
I can also think as well, he's maybe expecting his defenders to do better.
Yeah. I think Starfelt's jump was slightly mistimed and he ended up underneath the ball. So
yeah, but I think it was initially Welsh that was supposed to be picking him up because Starfelt had Goldson, is that right?
I think so, yeah. Yep.
And then the split second where Helander had got the run, Starfelt was nearest him in the TV pictures. So it looked as if he's mistimed it. Well, that I only saw it in real time and then I saw one replay. Too busy typing and too busy feeling sick. You know, but to watch it again and to pour over the finer details of it, quite honestly. But yeah, but you know, so you every goal you're going to point the finger of blame at somebody, really, aren't you? You know, but I think we've got to be mindful of where Celtic have come from when the manager stepped in the door. The arduous task that he had to try and get a team formulated for the Champions League qualifiers when everybody knew that they were never going to be, as Jim would say, battle ready, battle hardened for a competition like that. You know, so to qualify for the Europa League group stages is great sign of progress. The two games that they've won them with panache and flair and real style. The two games that they've lost could so easily have been won or at least drawn. You know, so you you're marking a report card, you would maybe say, what, B-, B+, whatever, something like that. You know, there's things to work on. But I tell you what you are. From 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, you're very encouraged. You're positive, you know. It could have been better, but conversely, it could have been worse. So you accept that, yeah, I hate the word transitioning because I never really apply that to a Celtic team, but they are transitioning just now. And once he gets a settled 11 and he plays players in their natural position, like Kyogo for me has to start through the middle now in every game. Right?
Yeah, 100%. I think Ange knows that as well, to be fair.
We're going to accommodate that with Giakoumakis. I don't know. Right? But he has to start through the middle, right? It's for me, it's a no-brainer. So that's the manager that's going to make those calls now, and he's brought these players in. as you say, they're his signings now, so you work with them and you find a formation that suits. I'm of the opinion you can't get enough good players in your team.
No.
If you have good players in your team, Laura, you have a good team. See, people say you can't play with him, and that's nonsense. Good managers find a way to, shoehorn good players into a team. That's how you become a good team.
Yeah.
And I told you before, I'm very simple sometimes and narrow visioned of the way I think about football, but it's quite a simple game. My old man was a manager. He used to say things like that to me. He said, good players in your team, you'll have a good team, son. I'm like, well, fair enough, So I firmly believe that. So it's now just finding those 11 good players to play the formation and style that Ange wants and feel confident about it. But I'm like you. I feel confident about Celtic moving forward.
Yeah.
I think Sunday and the first day of the season were road bumps. We took a belt in the mush. That's fair enough. You lick your wounds and you've got time to now come back stronger, bigger and better. And if
100%.
that's what you want them to do, don't come back and drop points to the next, because then you will start to question things and, what's happening, But he's been cut slack. A lot of managers wouldn't be cut slack with 4 league games played and 2 lost, and especially 2, one to Hearts and 1 to Rangers. But he's getting cut slack because he is new to it all, and we get that. But now Celtic have to go on a consistent run of winning matches, to just show that we are going to be there or thereabouts.
Well, I was going to look at the month of September and the fixtures that we have is a big month coming up. But before I do that, just want to say thanks to everybody who's watching. Apologies, I've not had a chance to get more of your comments up and things, but I'm sure if you had a one-to-one with Tony Haggerty to talk football, you would be listening to every word that he says and taking it in, drinking it in, if you will. But thank you very much for watching on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Twitch. On YouTube especially, if you subscribe and hit the little bell icon, you can get notified anytime a video of ours goes live on the channel. You can also be entered in a prize draw that we are doing on a monthly basis. Well done to Tony Cassidy, who won last month's August prize, which was the Fratelli's disc display for one of their albums. I don't know if he's managed to be contacted to let us know that he's collecting it, but well done to him. You could be the next winner. Tony, looking ahead at the month of September, so on the 11th, we've got Ross County at home, followed by Real Betis away on the 16th. The 19th sees us go to Livingston, followed by a cup game at home against Raith Rovers on the 23rd. Then we are home in the Scottish Premiership to Dundee United, and then home to Bayer Leverkusen to round out the month of September. A big month, and I think one of the things that we're going to have to show in the next month or so is that we can get points away from home. We've got 2 games away from home, 2 big games away from home. They are going to be where people are going to really concentrate because we've been flying at home.
Yeah, and I think there's a small alarm bell ringing, right? And I'm saying, when I said that Ange's been cut a bit of slack, but Celtic supporters are, in the back of their mind, they're concerned about the away form. It would be churlish not to address that and talk about it, So you have to say, right, okay, at home we're good. We've put 2 teams to the sword, 6-0. A team that came up from the first division, and also a team, St Mirren, who finished in the bottom 6. So, okay, right, we can cope at home. We seem to be the real deal. Away games, Achilles heel at the minute, but it has to be addressed immediately. And it doesn't matter the opposition, it just has to be addressed. Because I think you understand that you're not going to be able to play the fast-flowing football, the rip-roaring, free-scoring, never boring football that you do at Celtic Park. Going to have to, every club that you play or every team that you play is going to try and hustle and harry you out of that style when you go away from home. Narrow pitches, so, and that's when he has to start picking horses for courses teams and realising, right, if this isn't going to work, where's my plan B to go and win this? What can I do? Which might be the likes of you talking about Giakoumakis coming in. might mix it a bit. If it's not Kyogo's through the middle day, mix it a bit. We'll go with the battering ram of a centre forward. And it doesn't really matter at this stage, Ange. I don't think it really matters. We all love to see them play that style that brought the 6-0 victories. We see right now, I think Celtic supporters would take a consistent run of wins just to get us to where we feel we want to be. And of course at home, they've been pretty formidable at home, and you can see that happening a lot to teams with the way they're creating, and the guys up front that they've got, Kyogo especially. But away from home, just want to see them start to string a bit of consistency and results, and showing that, okay, if other teams are going to play that way against you, then we've got the tools to, we equip ourselves with the tools to get in behind them and get goals when it matters.
Yeah, one game that stands out there, obviously apart from the Europa League ones there for me, is the game away at Livingston. It's going to be a strange sensation watching that one, given Livingston had quite a big part to play in our season last season and the ups and downs of it. They were obviously one of the teams we played when we had a lot of players in isolation after the trip to Dubai. We actually beat them by 6 goals under John Kennedy when Neil Lennon had left. So they've been a marker for some pretty big occasions last season. It's going to be the case again this season. If we can go away to Almond Vale and beat them comfortably, then hopefully, it might be a bit of a turnaround domestically, at least to our season.
Well, I think that's a big game, Laura, because Celtic have they've struggled pretty much at the Tony Macaroni, haven't they?
Mm-hmm.
They've never been comfortable. So I think an early marker would suggest that going there and winning comfortably if they can, or just winning. Finding a way to win, because they've drawn a lot of matches at Livingston, they've lost a lot of matches in Livingston. They just hate that surface at Livingston for some reason. So just even going there and taking, again, as I say, small steps along the way, go to Livingston and win. It doesn't matter how you do it. Find a way to win, and then you say, right, let's build upon that, but, there's no point in having stop-starts in your season. Great result against Dundee, great result against St Mirren, bad result against Hearts, bad result against Rangers. It can't be like that. It has to be better,
Yeah.
And I'm not, these are just statistical facts, right? You look at the table and Celtic are 4 points behind.
That's not you rolling out stats, is it, Tony? That's not like you.
No, you know me, I'm not a stats man. I'm talking about if you're looking at the table, and I know it's early days, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. But I'm just saying you have to guard against your season being stop-start, because you can't even afford to write off too many 3 points, even at this early juncture. Right? And I'm not saying they're writing them up. I'm just talking about, we've played 4, 1-2 and lost 2. So it's not great, is it?
No.
For want of a better expression, it's not great, because when you look at the 4 of them, you think, actually, at certain points in all of those games, they were winnable.
Mm-hmm. I think it's just one of those things that the Hearts game was a bit of an anomaly. Rangers, you can win against them, you can lose against them. It's not really an indication of the rest of your season. So it's somewhat unfortunate that those two have happened so early in the season. But like you say, I think a big run in the next month where if we can get, maybe even a draw and a win in the Europa League, and then 100% record in the league at home, or in the league domestically, I should say, then you're going into October looking very strong. But to close out the show, I wanted to look at the Europa League specifically. Obviously, the draw was, fresh out of the bowl, so to say, on last Friday when we were on, and we were kind of just digesting it as it was coming in. We're starting away at Real Betis and then at home to Leverkusen, 2 of the hardest ties in the group, I would suggest. What are your thoughts a week on of what to expect out of this group? What do you think qualification from the group is something we should be targeting, or is that going to be a happy bonus, do you think?
No, we should be targeting qualification from the group. Completely and utterly. I don't look at those teams and fear any of them. Do you?
No, I think Leverkusen has got good relatively recent European pedigree, but apart from that, there's some nice names, but none of them have been particularly massive in recent years.
Try to tell me that Celtic can't be a match for any of them at home.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
I believe that, right? So I would say that I'm looking to pick up 9 points at home from those 3 games. Right? Yeah. Whether that's doable or pie in the sky, we'll soon find out. But that to me is a minimum requirement, right? If you want to get through this group, and I think Celtic have ambitions of getting through the group. Because as I say, I look at those teams and they don't frighten me, per se. I saw Bayer Leverkusen came to Ibrox amidst lockdown, just as lockdown started, in fact, and battered them 3-1. We're no under any illusion. Any German team you play in European competition is formidable opposition. But so Celtic at times. Mm-hmm. I think Celtic under Ange at home in Europe can be pretty formidable. It's just that the away form frightens you. They just have to find a way to start getting results away. But yeah. I think they can get a result against Ferencváros away. Betis away in your first one, tough start. But you know what? Go and embrace it. Go and embrace this competition. Go and be competitive as you can. Go and see the headlines for getting through the groups. Into the knockout phase. That's where Celtic want to be. That's your yardstick. That's where you're measured. Go and make this a season to remember for all the right reasons. Starting against Betis, I look at them like, yeah, they're all challenges, but they're not insurmountable challenges, are they?
No, and I think as well, like Leverkusen, for example, have just lost Leon Bailey to Aston Villa. He was a massive threat and a major impact on the results against Rangers last season. So, there's the potential that, I think we focus so much on the crisis going on at our own club, as we should, and where we're at as a club. As Ed Alkmaar that we just played, certain other clubs who we're going to come up against are having crises of their own and maybe aren't going into the games as confident as they might normally do. So, you never know, basically. But I'm the same as you. It's a bonus that we're even in European competition this season, given where we thought we would be. So I think we should just go for it.
It's a bonus that we're in it this early in the kind of transition or rebuild, as we're talking about, so why not? Why not go out there and just enjoy being in the group stages of European competition again, and have, as you say, have a rip at it, have a pop. You've got nothing to lose. Because people are right, you look at that group and people are writing Celtic off in a group that contains Leverkusen, Betis and Ferencváros. Writing Celtic off. I mean, come on, Celtic, these teams are in their respective leagues, from 3rd to 6th down. I think that equates with, especially in the Spanish league and the German league, that equates with a top tier team in the Scottish league, surely.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I think we're very comparable. So, to the victor the spoils. Let's have it. Let's go into it and embrace this tournament and try and get as far as we can.
I think let's go for it as well. And with that, I think we'll probably bring the show to a close. Thanks very much, everybody, for watching. Thanks very much, Tony, for your thoughts on Johnny Thomson at the beginning of the show and thoughts on the next month or so. I just wanted to close out the show with this little quote that I found from James Handley that he wrote in his book, The Celtic Story, in 1960. And it was about Johnny Thomson. He said, "It's hard for those who did not know him to appreciate the power of the spell he cast on all who watched him regularly in action. A man who has not read Homer," wrote Bagot, "is like a man who has not seen the ocean. There is a great object of which he has no idea." So, just because we haven't seen him in action, just because we haven't appreciated him in the flesh, doesn't mean that we don't remember him. As Tony says, they live on in the hearts that they leave behind, and I think Johnny Thomson is that. We will see you all next week for the continued Celtic bulletins on ACSOM, and keep tuned to a State of Mind YouTube channel, I should say, where we've got some coverage of a music festival coming up this weekend that will be covered by our very own Russell Boyce. Thanks very much, Tony. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks very much, and see you later.